Critical Incident by Sheehan Roberts. Video Segment 1. In the previous two audio segments, called Investigation, I explored the phrase critical incident. Now I'll be investigating what I believe to be the critical incident within the industry. I had the privilege of interviewing two industry professionals. In this segment, we'll be hearing their views. The first question I asked was, what is a critical incident within the broadcast industry?
The most important critical incident in the past kind of 50 years has been the invention of, obviously, of digital formats. And certainly from the audio point of view, that was as important a development, an incident, as the invention of vinyl, the transition from 78s, which were on old heavy shellac, and the invention of the long player. So, but digital, I think, the digital formats have had much more of a dramatic impact. I mean, truly created a revolution within audio-visual industries.
Well, in TV, rather than feature films, I feel that the first major incident I remember in my lifetime anyway, I started in the industry about 25 years ago. And I remember just before I started, and more or less within the first year or so of me starting in the business, the major change, world-breaking change, was when TV crews, location crews, started filming with video rather than film. Most news gathering was done with film, 16mm. It was primarily, I think, reversal footage, and that was the main sort of way of filming TV on location. And it was quite a revolution, I remember at the time, when Sony started pushing this new format called 3/4 inch, we know it as U-matic, and it was quite radical. Ironically though, back in those days, it was much bulkier and worse quality than film, and needed more crew almost to man it. But that to me was probably the first major landmark, starting to shoot on video.
In my experience, I've seen a lot of significant changes that could be categorized as critical. But who are the major players that influence the change of technology?
The advent of all the new formats and the major changes, the revolutionary changes in delivery systems and tape formats, for instance, have always been the subject of a huge worldwide battle between global multinational media companies. Probably 30 odd years ago, you had the struggle between the two formats of Betamax and VHS for domestic market, and VHS won out, although Betamax continues to be used. In fact, was a superior format. The quality was much better. But it didn't boil down to that. It boiled down to who had the biggest marketing and distribution muscle, and really, that's what defines the format that won out in the end. You're having similar kind of battles going on at the moment with all the various digital formats that there are, and DVD formats and so on. So those battles continue to go on, and depending how the market goes, you can't predict these things. One will win out, and it's not necessarily the most effective or the highest quality.
Well, I don't like saying this because they're a bit like the Microsoft of the video industry, but Sony are the pioneers of nearly all the major developments in video. When they invented and released the original U-matic format, ironically that was destined for home users, but then they realised that a 60-minute tape and the size and bulk of it and expense wasn't really suitable for the home user. So they dumped it on the public, on the broadcast industry. And they did the same with Betacam. That again was destined as a domestic format, but when it failed as a domestic format in the guise of Betamax, they conveniently renamed it Betacam, ran it 3 or 4 times the speed, and it then became Betacam, Betacam SP. Now it's in HD Cam, still the same, more or less the same tape format, just different formulation electronics.
Professional video formats have had a notable impact over a great period of time. From 1956, the first successful magnetic recording by Amix, to 2003, the most recent HD format from Sony, HDCam SP. Drawing from the experience of these two professionals, Chris with a TV broadcast background and Viv, although more of a musical industry background, has made programs for TV. I asked them what critical incident influenced the industry in such a way that it was never the same.
I don't think there is any one particular critical incident in the evolution of the digital formats. It accelerated extremely quickly, and so modifications and changes and improvements happened very, very quickly after the invention of the digital formats, because it's to do with the treatment of data and the storage of data, rather than tape-based solutions that were the norm in the run-up to that. So this moved incredibly quickly, so that there just simply isn't one particular incident that you could point to and say that was critical. The amount of data that you could store on a CD, the invention of the mini discs, so on and so on. The invention of DVDs and so on, all of this had an effect. The cumulative effect of all of this has been to make higher and higher quality equipment and materials available at a cheaper and cheaper price, not only to the industry but to the general public. And that's what I think is really exciting. It's removed more and more of the barriers to people being able to create. There are still enormous barriers in the industry for people to actually break through, but at least people can create. I mean, the industry is clearly still dominated by the global media giants, and will continue to be, but if people can make amazingly good programs for a fraction of the cost that it would have cost years ago, then there's an opportunity for them to kind of get their work seen, get themselves noticed, and get a breakthrough into the industry. So that's why it's been so revolutionary, I think.
Betacam, I was in the industry at the time when that first came out, and I was one of the first few to use it, and people were just amazed that you could have a camera and a tape all in one machine on your shoulder. The sound men were very worried about their jobs because they thought, well, because sound men in those days were what were known as VTR ops stroke sound men, so they doubled as a VTR operator, and they looked after the VTR and they looked after the sound. But when that suddenly was stuck on the back of someone's camera, I think they're a bit worried. But then they got renamed as sound recorders with SQNs and things like that. But that was a major landmark, and it also came about the time when the unions were just about to sort of lose their hold on the industry, and we started to go into two-man crews and things like that. And I remember when I first started using Betacam, most of the other crews were still using the older formats because the unions, well, not so much the unions, but the networks were actually told they had to lock up all the equipment because the unions hadn't agreed on whether this format was legal or not to you know, sort of roll out. But now it's history. You know, we're all used to camcorders.
Unfortunately, we've come to the end. But this was my last question to Viv and Chris. What do they think the future holds for us?
Obviously, almost impossible to predict what is going to happen in the future within the media industries, and in particular what kind of formats. It's difficult to see how far the quality of two-dimensional images can get, and how far the quality of audio recordings can go. You wouldn't have thought they could actually go much further. So I think that the developments are likely to be in holographic images, for instance, so that movies may, in 10 years' time, be holographic images, or in the sense that virtual reality films. So we'll move on from being kind of 3D in IMAX, where you would wear glasses or the head unit to give you virtual reality games, to being able to sit in a room like this and actually see people walking around in the room as part of the film. So that, I would have thought, will come probably within 10 years, but who knows, you know.
One thing I know is that some major broadcasters, I know the BBC especially, have got this thing, they're a bit OCD about it, but they swear that by 2010 they will be completely tapeless. That's their goal. They want to be tapeless by 2010. That will have a massive knock-on effect in the industry, especially in Soho and the kind of all the duplication and all the post production facilities, because they earn their crust through duplicating from one format to another, or cloning masters into sub-masters and re-editing them. And I think they're very concerned about the knock-on effect there on the industry, because if it's tapeless, you know, I mean, what are they going to be doing in the West End? I'm a bit nervous about tapeless technology because I'm a bit old-fashioned in that I feel that you need to put the data on something you can touch and put in your hand and then put in a shelf. I know you can put memory in the shelf, but you know, at the end of the day, the whole idea behind tapeless is you recycle the memory. Panasonic claim this is the eco-friendly side of it, that you can recycle it. But what happens to the original? Does it just disappear? Do we lose it forever? I'm not sure about that.
My name's Sheehan Roberts. Thank you for watching Critical Incident.